Hey, welcome back. Today we've got a bay liner with some nasty oxidation, and if you'll see here, he's hit every single thing on the lake. And this, I don't even know what went on here. A couple burn throughs on the gel coat where the fenders protected the boat against the dock. Wink. Lots of oxidation, obviously. So when we were asked to wax this, we could have just slapped some wax on it, gotten rid of a little bit of the oxidation, and called it good. But as this was an old boat that nobody thought could be brought back, I took it as a personal challenge and said, let's do it right. So everything you're going to see is generally the right way to treat an older boat that you'd like to restore back to original condition. So prepare yourself, free your minds, forget everything that you've learned thus far, and enjoy the fact that we're going to be doing all the work and you can just sit back, save yourself a ton of time by learning some of the techniques that we use, some of the processes. So without further ado, I'd like to get into this. First thing first, we're going to take off all these snaps, that back swim step, the bimini top, that vent, most of the decals. That's right, most of the decals are coming off. And with a little bit of luck, by the time we're done, this will all be cleaned up and you won't see any of whatever that is. So here we go. Since this is a long video, I thought I'd save some time. You can assume that we went around the entire boat and removed every snap and every piece of hardware we could. And now we're going to pull off the decals. Now using a heat gun or a really nice hair dryer, you can do this. Get the decal lifted up a little bit, get to start, and then start pulling it off. Now notice how he's keeping tension almost evenly along the pull of this particular decal. So he's not pulling too tight and not letting it get too hot so that the decal breaks. And I'll show you an example of how not to do it in just a second. Following up with a little bit of acetone or adhesive remover by 3M, you can take off most of the glue and residue that's left behind. Sometimes you don't have to necessarily go through this step. Considering what we're going to be doing next with the buffers and the polishing, you might have saved some time by avoiding that. Now here's pulling off the decal a little bit too quick, with a little bit too much tension, not actually using the heat to soften up the decal enough to allow that adhesive to let go. But once it's all done, we've got all the snaps off and all the hardware removed, we've taped off everything that we don't want to destroy with the buffer. Now we're almost ready to begin. So I'm going to let you take a look at this and see that we've taken everything off. Didn't take all that long, and the end result is so much better when you don't have to fight through the snaps and the hardware. Now this is going to be one of the few times this year and even throughout the decade that I've used Supercut. But it does have a place, and this boat definitely had many places for it to have a place. So sometimes we're able to get out the ghosting from the decal quite easily. In this case, one of my guys decided to try to wet sand, and he quickly abandoned that idea. This is going to take 2 or 3 passes with the Supercut just to get through to fresh oxidation. Also, it's a great product to get scratches out. So right now, Herbert, who's been working with me for a couple months now, is trying to get out a very particularly deep scratch, and he's almost there. So let's take a watch, see how he's doing, how he does it, and we might learn something. And here he is going with the scratch. Now he's going against it and flattening it out to take a look at his results. If he doesn't like what he sees, he'll dig into it again. So he's going one direction, and he's going to switch it about 90 degrees, try to cross-cut. If he doesn't like what he sees, after he flattens out and inspects his area, he'll repeat the process. And he definitely has a long way to go. Now I've already finished the starboard side with the Supercut, so let's get into the heavy cut, shall we? This is my perspective, and it's not entirely my perspective. I actually have a GoPro mounted to my forehead, so if it's any consolation to you not being able to see exactly what I see, just know that I look like a complete moron while doing this part. I've applied the heavy cut to the pad. I'm going to spread this out fairly evenly on the area that I intend to work on. So once it's spread out, I'm going to speed the buffer up to its lowest setting and continue to spread that out and just make sure it's fairly even across this area. And then, just like everything else I do, I'm going to start with my edges. In particular, the edge of this bottom part of the bayliner sticker. I'm going to work that gel coat really aggressively and yet try to save the decal from all the force and heat that I'm building up with this polisher. And now that I've got all of the edges taken care of, I'm going to go ahead and smooth this out. And as soon as I get it all spread out and even, I'm going to go ahead and speed up my buffer to full speed. Now what this is doing is polishing up the middle between those two edges that I already polished up. And I'm just going to let you sit back and enjoy this as much as I will. If you've caught nothing else, at least pay attention to the fact that my buffer pad is spinning fairly flat on the surface. It's not lifting up, I'm not putting my edge on the buffer, I'm not trying to get too aggressive with it and burn anything off. I'm just working with the product and working with the gel coat the best way I know how. And it seems to be working out. And this is just the same thing. I'm just continuing one section and blending it into the next section. I've got to do above this decal, and then I've got to work on the back corner that leads into the transom. So again, I'm just going to back out. You can watch this, get some tips, or prepare for some questions. Good idea is to go ahead and use those questions in the comments section. I'll answer, I swear. I'll say stuff. You might be asking yourself, why did he apply the product on the boat this time, but before he just put it on the pad? The answer is, because I felt like it. It really is your personal choice. There's sometimes when you do want to put it on the boat, there's other times when you only want to put it on the pad. In this particular case, I made a judgment call and I stand by it. Here I'm basically working the bottom of this vent edge, and as I work it, I'm flattening out more and more with each subsequent pass my buffer pad. So what I'm trying to do is spread out that nice shiny gel coat section away from the vent and work it into the flatter sections of the hull, at which point I'll try to blend them all together and make the boat think that my buffer wheel was flat the entire time and I never once raised up on an edge. At least that's the goal. And it should be easy. Let's be honest, boats are stupid. I took the liberty of trying the heavy cut on the top sides a little bit just to see what it was going to do, and quite honestly, I was fairly happy with the result. But we're focusing on the hull, so we're going to remove as much of the residue and oil from the heavy cut and the super cut. We're going to inspect the gel coat and see if we like what we see. Generally, we liked what we saw. So the very next step is to use Finess-it. Now Finess-it's going to use a clean wool pad. We're going to go through all these steps a little bit quicker just because we don't have to be as aggressive as we were before, but we are going to go through all the steps just to get to the final finish that we really like. And I'd like to show you how all this works. So here goes Herbert. He's starting with the super cut. He'll work his way into the heavy cut, then he'll get into some Finess-it or perfect it. Whichever he chooses, that's what he's going to do, and you'll be able to see it. Enjoy. Because this is supercut, you're going to see Herbert get a little bit more aggressive than you might think you'd want to. But knowing that he's got 2 more steps after this and a wax process after that, he doesn't really care, and I don't care too much about the swirls and potential marks that we're leaving in this boat right now. His job right here is to get the oxidation gone as much as possible, get the scratches out, and bring up a nice, fresh layer of gel coat to work with from that point on. Now Herbert sees something in the gel coat that he's not really happy with, so he's going to apply a little bit of product onto the boat itself, and then he's going to blow your minds by putting a little bit on the pad. I know, what's the world coming to? Cats and dogs living together. Mass hysteria. So he's going to go through this process one more time, and let's see how it looks when he's done. So he's doing a really good job at cross-cutting while spreading out this product. And cross-cutting is important. Anyone who's ever sandpapered anything or wet sanded anything knows that you can't just go in one direction. You always want to go in the opposite direction. And not just back and forth, but back and forth and then up to down or down to up. Cross-cutting. Once that's accomplished, he can work on his edges, as he's doing here, and then grind a little bit more, I suppose, just to get a more uniform color in the gel coat. Eventually, he'll be flattening this buffer out, putting it nice and flush with the surface. Once he's got his edges done, you'll see this, and he'll speed up the buffer accordingly. After a thorough cleaning of the pad, it's now time for, that's right, heavy cut. Enjoy. So, heavy cut by 3M, a DeWalt buffer spinning at full speed. And if you look on the left side or the port side of the boat, you might see some slight holograms in the gel coat. And I'm assuming that Herbert is also leaving those similar holograms in the section that he's working in. But we're going to be using Finess-it. We have one more step after this just for the compounding, and that'll take care of all of the little swirls and holograms that we've left in there in the process. So I'm not terribly worried about it. And you might think, well, this is not as good as wet sanding. Yeah, it is. In fact, it's better. Wet sanding would have taken about, I don't know, 2 weeks for one person to do to this entire boat. Meanwhile, 2 guys get this thing done in about a day and a half. It's cheaper, more cost effective to the business, more cost effective to the customer, and it's easy. Go grab some products, watch this video a couple times, and give it a shot. I think that you'll impress yourself. I hope you do. All right, well, we're done with the heavy cut and the super cut. Now we're on to the Finess-it EX. Now, this is a product that I did a review on recently. We compared it against 5 other compounds in a very cool test, I thought, if I do say so myself. Herbert's going to do exactly the same thing we've been doing all along. He's going to spread this out and work on his edges, and then he's going to figure out how to finesse and perfect the gel coat in between. I'm going to pull off, go downstairs and grab a beer. I'll be right back. Hopefully he'll be done with this by then. Well, now you can see the 2 little indents on the port side of the transom. Those are the things that he was working on when he was dealing with the heavy cut, and you were probably wondering why he was going up on edge in those. He's doing it again just to clear out the residue that was in there. He'll then flatten out and make it all look good. But you can tell the clarity, the color, the reflection is obviously something that he likes. He's moving much differently now, much slower, a lot more control. And I think that you're starting to get, hopefully, the idea that you just start big and work your way to the small. Also, I really don't think that I should have to wait, so if you don't mind. That's so good. Cheers, Herbert. That looks great. Now it's my time. So, here I go again. Finesse it on the top, and I'm going to start working it in with the buffer. You'll see how I also attack my edges, and then try to get my buffer flat on every surface of the boat. Enough talk, let's rock. Besides, my beer's getting warm. All right, that's enough of that. Let's get into some reveal shots. Now, this is all before wax, but after all the compounding. So we're just basically cleaning it up, making sure that we like what we see. After this, we'll wash the hull with some soap and water. Dawn dishwashing soap works best. Just remove all the oil that we imparted onto the hull so that the wax we put on has the best chance of adhering. That'll be in the next couple steps. We'll get to that in a second. For right now, just sit back and be in awe, or at least appreciate the work that went into this. There was quite a bit of work. Here we're applying the wax, a light coat of wax, with a random orbital polisher. Now the thing I like about the random orbital polisher for applying wax is it simulates the little circles that I like people to apply wax with without having to do little circles. And here I am taking the wax off with yet another random orbital polisher. And for the same reason I enjoy the random orbital polisher applying wax, I also enjoy the random orbital polisher's ability to do those little circles much faster than I can do with my hand, and it leaves a very uniform, clean finish. Afterwards, sometimes you have to wipe off some dust or maybe a little bit of oil residue, but in general, they leave a fairly swirl-free finish. I'm going to go ahead and say that this boat looks outstanding. Okay, maybe not outstanding, but it looks really good. If you recall, there was a section right about here that, quite honestly, made me want to throw up just looking at. And now, the boat looks like, well, a boat. Without the chalked up and scratched up and pulled apart decals, this thing looks great. We put the snaps back, we got the stairs back on, we got the bimini top on. The vents are on the sides, and now this looks like a boat that if you wanted to sell it, you could get a lot more for it than you could have just 2 days ago. So, if you don't want to sell it and you just want to enjoy your boat, this is a boat that you can enjoy a lot more than you could have, let's say, 2 days ago. That's all I'm saying. As always, remember, the standard is the standard. If you have questions or comments, hit us up in the comments section. I will reply. Thanks for watching and have a great day.